Hello and welcome to the Zwift Race Place. I'm Cade Fravel, and today we are bringing you another recon ride. This week it's the Countryside Tour Loop in Macquarie Islands. That's this week's ZRL course. It's going to be a scratch race, and today on the mic with me I have Adam Thorpe and Hywel Davies, both from the Wahoo Le Col squad, also the sponsors of this group ride. Adam, you want to introduce yourself, and then Hywel, you can go ahead.
Morning, guys. Yeah, I'm Adam Thorpe. I'm one of the members of the men's elite team, and I've been having a good look at this course. I'm really excited for this one. It's got a lot of potential tactics in it, so yeah, stay tuned today.
All right, Hywel.
Hi, guys. Hi, Hywel Davies. Will be the sixth start league race again. So every time you can do this course, the more you learn, something crops up. So yeah, we'll just have fun going through, and no doubt talk about bike choice, having now defaulted back to a Zwift carbon bike currently on. So hopefully I'll keep up.
All right, well, the first thing that I want to touch on, like always, is just some of the basic details of this course. We've got the elevation profile pulled up on the stream, and this one's going to be 15.8 kilometers. That's 9.8 miles per lap. And then we've got 185 meters of elevation, or 607 feet of elevation per lap as well. A's and B's are going to be doing 2 2/3-ish laps of this course. I think that's aiming to finish right around the top of the Temple KOM. And C's and D's doing 1 2/3 laps of this course. So also going to finish right around the same point, just on a different lap. The C's and D's have 1 lap shorter today. We've got 2 intermediates out on course, the Country Sprint Reverse, I believe, and the Temple KOM. That's going to be a sprint intermediate and a climbers intermediate. So a little bit of points for everyone today. Now, this is possibly one of the first climbers courses. We've had some other climbs, but this could be a course for the climbers. Or is it? I'm not entirely sure right now. I thought maybe you guys could weigh in on whether or not you think this is a good one for the climbers, or will that less steep KOM make it draftable enough where the sprinters can still be in play? Adam, maybe you want to start.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, I wouldn't say it's a climbers course, but it's a course where a climber will probably win at the finish line. That doesn't necessarily mean a climber will score the most points on this course. So it depends what you're looking for. And if you're in community divisions, there's a lot of points to be picked up from sprinters in the early intermediates. But it's going to be a tough course of playing to your own strengths, knowing what you're good at. There's certain elements of bike choice, which we'll come to later, which are going to affect what you should be targeting in this race. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential as both a sprinter and a climber on this course, but climbers should be the ones that win out at the end of the day at the top of the hill.
Yeah, the fact that it is a mountaintop finish should give the advantage to the climbers, at least in the finish. I don't know about the intermediates. Hywel, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I've raced this course now 5 times. Every time the race is going to be won differently, but it is always commonly someone with a very, very good engine over 20 minutes. And that's either with a breakaway, and if a couple of riders can get ahead, but they're still going to be working in the Premier League and the ACAT races. They're going to be working 5 watts kilo plus, good 20-30 minutes to win off the front. But otherwise, it's going to be a 5-minute climb where at least 6.5 going up to the Temple KOM. So this is not a sprinter's course, but that's not saying that there are sprinters who can't climb. So you just look at those numbers. If you've got a really good 5-minute power, you're in with a chance. If you've got a good 20-minute power, you're in with a chance. But if you're only relying on sprint, I don't think this is your course.
Now we're moving towards the first intermediate on course. That's going to be the sprint point. But before we start talking about that, I wanted to check in real quick. I think did you both race last week?
Yes,
Not for
I
me on
did.
the TTT.
Okay. So I think last week was one of the first races with the new pack dynamics, pack dynamic 3. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about those the new pack dynamics and how you think they might affect this week. Before we get into some of the more meaty stuff, intermediates and bike choice and whatnot. Hywell, you want to start?
Yeah, I think if you went to Pack Dynamic 2, you'd realise just how bad it was and how much we were putting up with the riders all over the screen. But it's a lot smoother, it's a lot more pleasant on the eye now. But in terms of the dynamics in the race, for the time trial, I thought it was much harder to get a little gap off the front. So the breakaway is going to have to be that little bit higher power to start. So if you are going to try and get a gap, I think you need a bit more effort to get away initially. And I still think that the pack has the advantage. So 2 watt per kilo less in a big group, and you'll still catch a solo rider. But I found you just needed to stay a little bit closer, and certainly on this course now, that hanging at the back, you're not really saving that much wattage. You're better off just being in the middle, where the draft is stronger.
All right, Adam. Anything to add about your experiences with the new pack dynamics?
Yeah, I've raced a couple of times this week, and it's very interesting compared to what we're used to. I think, as Hal said, it's harder to maybe get away, and it's also harder to get back on if you get dropped from a group. And I think that could potentially play quite a big key this week, especially with a lot of people potentially considering a bike swap. For me, I would probably rather stay in the group, I think, but it's that's what I found easiest now. When you're in the group, it's a lot easier to stay in the group, and when you're not in it, it's a lot harder for you.
All right, so it sounds like maybe the main takeaway from this is that breakaways are going to be a little bit harder with these new pack dynamics. Even more benefit to sticking with the group in some of these races. Now, we're coming up towards this country sprint banner. I'm watching the riders go through it right now on my screen. I was thinking we could walk them through this sprint a little bit. I know it's not super complex, but there is a slight gradient there, 1%. Adam, I thought maybe you could start us off.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of people on road bikes contesting that one. If they're not on a road bike, you need to be really, really careful. Is I think the main takeaway, because anyone who does start on a gravel bike, that is a serious, serious pressure point, because probably anyone on road bikes has picked a road bike to target that sprint. So they're going to be really all in. So you're going to get all the road bikes splitting away from the group potentially. And if you're on a gravel bike, I suspect it will be all in as well, just to hang on. And then you come straight into a climb. So you've got to be super careful there. But it's a crazy short sprint. I think it's about 8 seconds. And community divisions, if you're targeting fastest through, you've got to be at full pace well before you get to the start line of that sprint. You've got to be just holding, top speed over the start line, try and hold that through to the finish, which means starting really early and probably starting really far back in the pack. And if you're going for first across the line, it's not long enough to overtake tons of people. So you either need to have lots of momentum or be fairly near the front by the start of the segment. So it's a tough one to pace.
All right, Hywell, anything to add about that last sprint there, the country sprint, or the country sprint reverse?
I think Adam's covered it all, especially splits after. But one thing to bear in mind is this course is one of the fastest starts. Zwift there's not many like this apart from, say, Richmond UCI reverse. But then that all comes back together because you're starting going downhill and you can super tuck within the first 30 seconds of this course. So if you're starting at the back of the group, it's going to take you 5k to work your way up front to be in contention for that sprint. So I think your positioning has got to be critical from the start, and just moving up to the front, or at least in the front third, if you're even considering going for those sprint points.
Yeah, if you remember Flatland Loop, one we did earlier this season, it's the exact same start. If you struggled then, it's going to be exactly the same. So don't make the same mistakes twice if you found yourself getting caught out early on, and learn from that previous race this season.
I think that's good advice. I think this is one of the only races this season where we have repeats like that. I think there are 2 races in Watopia, and this is the second Macquarie route, but I think we've had quite a lot of diversity in terms of worlds this year. Moving on, now we're coming up to this KOM here, and I've been seeing some grass growing up through the pavement, which means it's almost time to start talking about that potential bike swap, which I think is the thing on everyone's minds right now. But real quick, before we get to the real meaty part of the climb, let's talk about power-up opinions real quick. We have Draft, Feather, and Steamroller in terms of power-ups for this week. I see somebody's dropping an arrow right now on course, but that's not going to be one that's available in the race. So I wanted to just get your opinions on power-ups. This is something that we try to always do in the streams, and it's usually a pretty interesting segment. So, Hywel, maybe you want to start us off. Power-up opinions.
The Steamroller is a game changer here, because I don't know from experience how much effect it'll have on a gravel bike, but if you're on a road bike and you've got the Steamroller on the dirt climb, I really think it's a difference between getting dropped and hanging on, because it's going to rocket you up through the group. And then the same way the climb itself was onto has got some steeper sections and some quite flat sections, and there's a bit, just as you can see the banner, it's the penultimate hairpin or the top where it goes up to about 10-11%. If you hit a feather there, again, that's the difference between staying in the group or getting dropped or just getting back on to test the com. So there's a lot of tactics of where you use them. I would like to have used the Steamroller to experiment, but there's just very few races where you get that option.
Yeah, I'm certainly of the opinion that if you get a Steamroller, you have to save it. If you get one through the finish line banner or the start line banner at the beginning of the race, you just hold it. You just hold it whatever it takes until you get to the climb, because that's where the splits are going to be made. And whether you've got a road bike or a gravel bike, it's going to make it faster, and significantly faster. I think last I checked, I believe the dirt is about 200 watts slower at 45k an hour on a flat road than, say, tarmac. So it's caused carnage in previous seasons, and I expect it to absolutely do the same again, particularly if you are on a road bike. As Hal says, I don't think it will make as big a difference on a gravel bike. It will definitely still make a difference, but it won't be as advantageous. But on that climb, it's definitely going to cause splits because it lasts for a long time. I think it's 30 seconds. So, yeah, really watch out for that and save it no matter what. And then if you're contesting sprints, obviously maybe use the draft and the feather to help you accelerate quicker or stay in pack easier. But, yeah, the Steamroller is the one you want this week.
All right, well, we're moving on to the climb now. We can see it's 3%, 2%. This climb is not super consistent one. It changes in gradient quite a bit, which is definitely something you have to keep in mind when racing this week, because it's not like you can set your power like we were talking about earlier on Cast Pat and then just kind of sit in. You have to be watching those gradient numbers in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and making sure you're mirroring them to stay with the group. And another thing to mention is maybe trainer difficulty. This isn't a great one to have your trainer difficulty set to 0 because you want to be able to feel those changes in the gradient. So we haven't quite hit the gravel section yet. I think, well, right now we're on a bridge, but there's still been quite a bit of tarmac through here. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about the KOM before we move on to bike choice. That'll be our next topic. Adam, maybe you can start us off just kind of walking us through the KOM, and we'll talk about the finish a little later. So right now, just kind of treating this as like a first lap KOM.
Yeah, just we're about to turn on it here. The start of this, you'll notice, is very draftable. And you'll probably also notice that anyone on a gravel bike starts to move through the field. From what I've noticed, it's super draftable at the start. You really don't want to be going out at a crazy pace, but you want to be towards the front because it then starts to split quite quickly. As you've mentioned previously, it undulates an awful lot between sort of 8-10% and 2-3%. It makes it interesting for sitting in and where to use your power and recover a little bit more. But yeah, there's a real key pinch towards the top just before it gets flat towards the finish of the banner. And I think if you put in a little spurt there, you can really get a gap and cause it to stick there. I think just before you come onto the flat section, that's where the gaps are going to be really decided and the groups are going to be formed.
All right, Hywell, anything to add to that?
Yeah, 9K is where the gravel starts. 9.5 is where the gradient starts. So this is where you've got to watch for an early attack. So anyone going off the front here, 4% incline, and this is where you want to do your first big effort, stay in the group. So you're looking around about 90 seconds for 2 minutes for your first effort, where it's going up steady gradient, and then it'll flatten off. So your first target is Temple Gateway. So we're going to keep going up via towards that Temple Gateway. Once you get through there, it will start to level for the first time. So best advice this really is to try and break it up into segments. And instead of looking at thirds, just look at your first steep bit, recover, second steep bit, recover, and then the kick to the finish.
Okay, I think we've got some great advice for the KOM out there now, at least for this first lap. We haven't quite touched on how to finish at the top of this yet, but we'll get to that in just a minute. But now it is time for the question that I think everybody has been waiting for, to swap or not to swap. I think first, maybe you guys just want to give your kind of baseline opinions, like before we even get into the more sciencey stuff. I know Zwift Insider has released some tests. What are your initial opinions about this? Hywell, you can start this time. And actually, real quick, I want to direct everybody who is listening currently to the chat over on YouTube. I'm going to be dropping a poll. Vote whether or not you think it's beneficial to switch or to start on a road bike or start on a gravel bike or mountain bike. That'll drop in the chat in just a couple minutes. All right, I will take it away.
Okay, I was one of the first to adopt bike change when we first started racing in the jungle and the mountain bike came out. What I found is that it's great if you can do it quick, do it in under 15 seconds, but then you need a massive effort to get any impact. And then you've got to change back, if you change back at all. And you're still in the same position often, and you're either solo or you're still chasing. So the net expenditure of effort to bike change is often quite high. And another place I've done it is at the top of the radio tower. So swap from road bike, TT bike to come down. But that means that the next whatever of the race, pretty much full gas to get that time back. So you really got to question if you've got the fitness to do it. And is your bike change going to be really quick? Now, the only way I'd ever consider it on this course is perhaps changing for the final climb when it's one last hurrah. But even then, to make it efficient, you've got to do it while you're going uphill. Otherwise, your pairing screen slowdown is another factor that just adds seconds. So if you can do it when you stop naturally and change quickly, then it's probably at that first bend when you hit the 4% gradient that I'd do it, if I was going to do it at all. But I personally wouldn't bother.
All right, so we've got Hywell's opinion now. We want your opinion as well. One more reminder, jump over to the YouTube chat right now. If you're riding currently, you can just click over real quick, vote, and then hop back. And in the meantime, Adam, why don't you give us your opinion on this?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat to Hal. There is zero chance I would be bike changing on the course. From the races I've done, I have, and this is A category races, the races I've done, if you're not in a group and you drop back out of it, you are never getting back. You are never getting back, and the draft is so big that you will never get the advantage that you're looking to get. That is my opinion in the fast categories. If you're a C or a D rider, there's maybe a lot more merit to it because you're on the surfaces for a lot longer, and draft is a lot smaller. So there's probably a lot more of an argument for it, but having not raced C and D categories, I wouldn't want to advise you into it based on that. But if most of the field swaps, I think you swap. But if only a couple swap, you've got no chance of getting back in unless you're in a C or D category, I think. But for the A's, yeah, I'm certainly of the perspective that you pick whatever you pick at the start and you use its advantages where it has it, and you make the most of what you've got when you get to the disadvantages. I've looked at it, done a lot of data crunching, and I think you're looking at the ACAT, you're looking about 0.2 watts per kilo difference to be on the gravel bike on the climb. So that's an advantage of 0.2 watts per kilo. And then it's about the same on the road, maybe 0.3 on the road in advantage of the Tron or the road bike. But I don't think it's even just a case of, do you pick gravel or do you pick road? I think it's, if you pick road, what road do you pick? Because you're not going to get dropped on the flat if you're on a road, that's for sure. So if I'm picking a road bike, I'm probably picking the most lightweight one because it's only the climb where you're going to struggle. And I think that's potentially the key. So if you've got the S-Works ethos, I think that's probably the one to go for if you're on a road bike. And this is all not even factoring in the effect of the steamroller. This will be a massive factor, potentially. If someone used it at the right time on a road bike and they can keep up, they're going to drop all the gravel bikes straight away the second they use a steamroller, because suddenly it's not a gravel climb, it's a road climb and they're on a road bike. So I think it's going to be massively tactical. But for the A categories, yeah, I would not be doing a bike swap.
All right, well, it sounds like you've done your homework on this, and I think those are all good things to keep in mind. It sounds like neither one of our pro riders are leaning towards bike swap, and although I think there is a difference between Premier and AB and then the CDs, I think as a CD rider, I would also advise CDs to probably not swap. And if you're thinking about it, maybe just watch what others are doing, because like Adam said, if you're the only one that ends up swapping, you're probably going to lose the wheels. And on a semi-draftable climb like this, that could be fatal. It's important not to just look at time, but also to look at where you're going to be falling out of the draft. It looks like we've got about 7 votes in right now. Any more people that want to vote? Last call to jump over to the YouTube chat and vote for your opinions. Currently, start on gravel bike and don't swap is leading in the poll. But there are no votes for starting on a road bike and swapping to a gravel bike. So seems like the only ones in the running right now are starting on a road bike or starting on a gravel bike. Adam mentioned a couple of good choices for road bikes if you're planning on going with a road bike. I think those are definitely things to keep in mind. And I also wanted to add, if you're looking for kind of an in-between option, the Tron is a good choice here, kind of an all-arounder bike that can handle well on the climb and on the flats. All right, I'm going to close the poll up here. So unless you're planning on getting your vote in, one last vote just came in. But in the meantime, we're coming up to the top of the KOM here. So I thought that we could start talking about finishing out this race. Adam, maybe you want to start us off this time. Just kind of talk about how to finish a mountaintop finish like this one.
This is a difficult finish because it's very flat for about 300 meters after the top of the climb before the banner, which makes how you pace your effort very difficult. When I've raced it previously, there is a hairpin towards the end, which, power-ups excluded. If you surge pretty hard there, and even if you just hold it for another 2-3 seconds onto the flat, if you surge hard enough, you get the gap usually, and you can break the motivation of a lot of riders if you're looking at a one-on-one or a small group, and suddenly they stop chasing and they just go, "Oh, he's better," and they give up. So even though you're probably finished after you've done that surge, there's an advantage to doing that because that's where the gap is made, and on the flat, it's then who's really motivated if they want to actually chase you. That's only for the very, very top, but yeah, about 450 meters to go or so. There's one final hill, and if you can really give it everything you've got up that, I'm of the opinion that is basically the sprint finish, and then it's just try and ride it into the finish line from there.
All right, Hywel, have anything to add about finishing out on the top of this climb? Looks like we're just about to come through the banner right here.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Draft to hit that final sort of left turn, but your guide is the two boardwalk bridges, two wooden bridges. As you come off the first one, that's where you need to be drafting, and you need to be sprinting as you hit the gravel and then hit that final bridge finish. And if you're leading before that, that's wasted energy. So if you're going for the KOM, draft all the way, the normal big sprint finish if you've got anything left. But just be careful because there's another 500 meters of flat straight afterwards. You're vulnerable then to any attack, losing the group. If you went all in for the KOM on laps 1 and 2, not so bad after the finish because you can just then roll downhill. But yeah, just be aware of that.
All right, I want to go back to something that Adam said in his response real quick, but quick announcement, we have now closed the poll, and it looks like 5 people voted to start on a road bike and not swap, and 5 people voted to start on a gravel bike and not swap out of our 10 total responses. So that's kind of the split in how the community is feeling. I think we on the stream have agreed with the fact that you should not be swapping. And if you're going to go for a road bike, lightest one is the best possible opinion. Just got a couple chats coming in here from Cy Bradley. He runs his own YouTube channel. He does these recons every week. He says, no bike change for him. Does depend on your role. If your role is to gain fastest through points on the KOM. And also, lower cats could consider a change. I think that's something that we can all agree on, is that depending on your category, things are a little different. So if you're a C and D, it's something to think about. Let's put it that way. Anyway, I wanted to jump back to something that Adam had said in his response real quick, which was about kind of breaking other people when you're towards the top of a climb like this by putting in a surge and just kind of almost like breaking their will. Even if you don't have more energy than they do, sometimes they'll think that you have more energy than you actually do, and they'll start to break off or not think they have the energy to follow you. So I think that's another good strategy to keep in mind. I don't know, Hywel, do you have any opinions on this?
Yeah, it's quite nasty. But if you keep surging, then the other riders risk letting you go, even if you know you're not surge for long. So you can just do 10 seconds. And they'll have to do the 10 seconds to match it. But the best scenario is if you do one and then they get on the front, you can draft off them and recover and then surge again. And that's the way that you'll wear someone down, is by constantly surging on your turn. So they've got to chase, but they don't know how long you're going to go for. So they just got to go all in every time. Whereas you know that you might just ease off after 10 seconds or so. And if they then carry on, you know they're strong and they're feeling fresh. But if they stop chasing and ease off too, then you know that they're probably hurting a lot more than you are. So it's a nasty way of doing it, but hey, that's racing.
All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the course today. I think we've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to talk about. We talked about the finish there, and it is important to note that we will come through this section before finishing at the top of the KOM. So this section that we're doing right here, this descent, will be raced on either lap 1 if you're a C&D, or lap 1 and 2 if you are an Premier A or B rider. And then we do, of course, finish on top of the KOM on the next or the following lap. Something that I've been doing here is just kind of admiring some of the graphics in this new Macquarie world. There have been some interesting things that I've never really noticed before that I have noticed now, just kind of watching the riders go through. There are some like floating blue flames, and there was a dinosaur's claw embedded in the hillside just before this on the descent. I don't really have anything else to add about the race itself. Any last thoughts from either of you?
Well, we haven't really discussed bike choice to start with. And I know that's the biggest issue that people are going to face here. And with the technology that we got on the websites and analysis tools, you could do a ride on the road, upload your data, and ask, what if? What if my CDA was low? What if I was 10 watts higher? What if I was on aero wheels, different position? And I think people are going to be asking the same question here. But whatever bike choice you go for, whether it's gravel or road, you just got to have faith to stick with it. And whatever happens in the race, afterwards, just let it go. Because there's nothing more you could have done. Don't regret your choice. Go with it, stick with it, and do your best with that bike.
I think another key on that one as well is, I'm not saying you're going to know what everyone in your own division is going to be doing, but if you do, maybe pick the one that everyone else has picked, or don't if you're looking for sprint points or something in that respect. But if you know what everyone else in your division is on somehow, then you can probably make a more astute decision based on that. And I think the other big key to this comes that if you do pick a gravel bike or a road bike, if you're in a group at some point on the race, and it's a small group, and it's half and half split between road and gravel bikes, if you're on the road bikes on the tarmac, don't tow them. Don't let them sit on your wheel. Attack them. Make the most of the advantage you've got, because if you're the one just pulling on the front on the tarmac, gravel bike's got it easy. Like, you need to make sure that you're actually getting the advantage when you're on the road. So you attack them and hope the other road bikes come with you, and leave the other gravel bikes absolutely on their limit, and then potentially TTing on the road as a group, which is slower than those on the road bikes. Like, the worst thing you want as a road bike is to be towing gravel bikes. And the worst thing you want as a gravel bike is to be towing road bikes up the climb. So, you know, you've really got to look at who you're with. This is the real key of this race, is if you bring a road bike to the intermediate sprint, they will beat you. If you bring a gravel bike to the KOM, they will probably beat you. So you've got to look at that. Look at who you're with, how you want to race it based on that.
All right, well, I've pulled up some of the data from Zwift Insider's latest article about the eighth race this week on Countryside Tour. That's the one we're previewing right now, and it looks like in terms of the wattage required to sit in on the flats, obviously we know that this is going to benefit the road bikes, but it looks like the Zwift Aero 808 and the Zwift Aero with 808 wheels, that requires about the least wattage out of the Zwift Arrow, the Canyon Grail, and the Trek Super Caliber. So that's a road bike, a gravel bike, and a mountain bike. So if you're looking for the benefit of having a road bike on the flats, in this case, it's nearly 70 watts. And then if you want to look at the climbs here, the Canyon Grail is going to bring you in at a 7-minute and 11-second KOM time, whereas that same Trek Super Caliber, the mountain bike, 1 second slower at 7 minutes and 12 seconds. And then the Tron bike is going to be 7:37. That's a good all-rounder choice, but that's quite a bit slower than the Canyon Grail and the Trek Super Caliber, the gravel bike and the mountain bike, if you're looking for just some of this data. And you can check out the full data over on Zwift Insider at that article, but that's kind of my summary of the different times for different bikes. I think I don't know, anything else.
It's also worth noting that that's only based on no draft. The more draft there is, the more it favours something that's better at rolling faster, say a road bike on tarmac. So consider that in your decision. It's not just going to be 70 watt difference on the tarmac because the gravel bikes will be getting a lot of draft at that sort of speed.
All right, we have a question in chat here. Other than deep wheels, any other tips for identifying gravel bikes on screen? I'm not entirely sure. Do you guys know?
They've got a flat stem, and stem sort of points downwards and it's flat. Whereas if you're on the Cervelo, it's a V-shaped stem. So I don't think many people use anything other than the Cervelo or the gravel bikes or the Tron. So they should be self-explanatory. But just be aware of this. It's a massive issue. In the Premier League, we've got to change bikes before we enter the pen. In the Community League, you can change bikes in the pen. And then if you change bike in the pen, it doesn't show up on everyone's screen as to what you're on. So you could turn up to the pen on a mountain bike, change to a gravel bike or road bike, and else will see you on a mountain bike. So that's a little glitch in the matrix that sometimes happens.
So almost like you can trick other riders by showing up on one bike and switching to another?
That's Zwift. So yeah, you can do that.
Huh.
But it doesn't work on every system. I've done it a few times. I've switched mountain bike in the pen, and people have seen me on a mountain bike. So you sometimes see in a crit race people on TT bikes and they're drafting all the way, and they shouldn't be. But it's just because that they've changed in the pen and they're on a road bike, but you see them on a TT bike.
All right. Well, that's a good thing to keep in mind. So, in response to Aaron Barry, the stems, obviously, like Hywel said, but also you can never really know for sure with Zwift. All right. Anything else to add about bike choice, bike swaps, intermediates before we sign off?
No, I think we covered it all. It's going to be a tough race, but as Adam said, if you're on a gravel and you start, just be prepared to be close to your 20-minute max to hang on, and it will settle. Once you get to the climb, it will settle for you, and it'll break up a little bit. But yeah, just warm up properly. Make sure you're ready for a big effort.
All
and
right.
save your steamroller.
Oh yeah, steamroller. That's a good thing to keep in mind. All right. Well, I want to thank Hywel and Adam. You guys were great today. Thank you for all of the advice, and Hywel, thank you for the many times that you've done this, and Adam, I think you did this once before, so thanks for that as well. I want to thank everybody on the WLC squad for making this possible, and all of our past commentators. This will be our last stream of the season. We're not going to be doing those playoff races, so no stream next week. This is the last one, but we'll see what happens next season or next year. Maybe we'll have one of these again if riders like it. Before you sign off, please like the video and subscribe to the Zwift Race Place if these recon rides have been helpful to you. share with a friend as well if you think that this could benefit them. And that's about all I have to say. All right, I'll see you guys.
Cheers, Cade.
Cheers, Kate.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Good luck with your debate.
Thank you. Thanks.